Welcome everyone to another episode of I'm That Geek. My name is Yifat Cohen. I am your host, and we are talking with world experts in real time where you can come in, pick their brain, have a conversation that really helps you with your specific challenges today. And today, I have with me one of my good friends, Holly Jean Jackson, who helps entrepreneurs and business leaders love their life and their business again. With over 12 years of technology and business experience, she helps business leaders get their groove back physically, mentally, and emotionally. She does this through combined approach of both coaching, consulting, and providing actionable advice. And so this is exactly what you're going to be getting today. Actionable advice that you can apply to your business right now, because her story, I gotta tell you guys, amazing. If anyone would have gone through what she's gone through, I would say like, okay, come on guys, like I don't have the energy, I don't have the mental capacity to get up and actually start a business after all of this stuff. So without further ado, let's start the conversation. But before we do, I want to let you know where you can join us right here. Hop on in wherever you're watching us, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, wherever it is. There's a link in the post. Click it and you'll hop into imthatgeek.com/live. Right below the video, there is a button. Click that button and you will be part of the conversation with us. So, hey Holly, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? And yeah, please do join the conversation because, as Yifat just said, nothing happens until you take action. And so, if you have any specific questions that we can answer today, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Because this lady, I'm telling you guys, we'll start with the beginning. And in the beginning, Holly Jean Jackson almost got killed by a bear. A real bear, like an actual bear. What happened, Holly?
So, it stems back about 8 or 9 years ago. I was going through a lot of stuff in my personal life. I was facing a divorce. I kind of had like a lot of layoffs in corporate America. And at the same time, I was having health challenge after health challenge. And this forced me to go through a program on codependency to improve myself and make sure I didn't make those same mistakes again. So it was a great time for reflection. And part of that journey was, oh, I'm going to go backpacking in the woods to do the spiritual inventory part of this practice to get really clear on all the stuff that I need to improve. So I did. I went backpacking in the middle of the woods in Lhasa National Forest, which is in Northern California. And it's ironic. I had several people say, "Oh, are you going to bring bear spray?" And I said, "Oh, I don't want to spend the money on bear spray. I've never run into bears. It's totally fine." So I gave my family members my route and I went on the trip. And on the second day, I got to this really stunning lake and I hadn't seen people all day. And then I ran into these fellow backpackers and they were shouting at me. And I was like, "Oh, hey, what's up, guys?" And I realized after a couple more times that they were shouting at me that they were signaling that there was a bear.
Oh,
So at
shit.
this point, yeah, I'm like, so I back away and I
It's
go
not like,
over to the,
hey, pretty woman, how you doing over there? It's like, no, watch out.
yeah, I thought they were like saying, "Hey, come join us," and they were skinny dipping, and I was like, "I'm gonna go hang out with these dudes that are naked over there." But sure enough, they were trying to word me, and so I ended up hanging out with them for the night, moved my camp to their site, and they were awesome. They had like Cuban cigars and whiskey, and they warned me and literally saved my life because the next morning they said, we ran into the same bear, and she's not normal. We think she has a cub, and there's a drought, and all these
Oh,
things.
yeah.
And they said they had to charge her. And I'm like, well, I've never heard of charging a bear. How do you charge a bear? So over coffee the next morning, they showed me how to charge a bear. They said, you stand your ground, you make loud noise, and then if it doesn't work, you take one step forward, make yourself big, and you go, "Rawr." And right?
I'm just imagining you, little you, standing in the middle of the woods, going like, "Whoa."
Yes,
And then
yes.
they're
It
going
was
like, you know what? I'm not gonna mess with her.
Yeah, no, it was really funny because these like five guys, they're tall and big, and
Yeah.
like I'm like me. And so they're teaching me over coffee this. They gave me a whistle and they sent me on my way because they were backpacking the opposite direction. So I continue hiking by myself, and for a couple of hours, I see nobody, and the forest gets really dense. And I look down and I notice some fresh paw prints and another smaller set. and they were very fresh. So I realized I was in the wrong place at the wrong time
Gosh.
before I saw anything, right? So I'm like, oh my gosh. So then I turned the next corner, and sure enough, there's Mama Bear. And I thought for a second maybe she didn't see me, but of course she did. She immediately began charging at me. And if you've seen a bear in the wild, it's not nearly as scary until you're alone and they're charging at you. Like they're running on all fours, like with
Oh
intent to
shit.
kill you. And so my whole life flashes before my eyes.
It literally did
And
that, huh? It literally like, like
yeah,
oh
I
shit.
mean, specifically, I just did all this journaling for this program. And I literally, because time slows down when your life is about to be threatened. And so I remember thinking very vividly, oh, I'm so glad I forgave people in my journal. I'm glad I'm in this like peaceful state. It's a good time to go if it's the time. And so, and then I got really angry. I'm like, well, I didn't come out here to be bear food.
Right.
And so then I, made myself big and I stepped forward and I was like, "Rah," with everything inside of me, and it worked.
Wow. Wow. So actually, little you going making yourself a little bigger actually works. That's
Well,
great.
it
So
did
what happened?
take 2 times, but yes.
So what happened? The bear just like stopped and turned around, or like what happened?
Well, so the first time she stopped, and then she proceeded to charge me again, making the distance maybe 50 to 100 yards at the end. And so she charged me again. At this point, my life was like before my eyes. And I said, okay, if it's going to happen, make it fast. I don't want to be out here dying for days or like missing limbs. And then I got angry again and I tried again. I was like, "Rawr," like even more fiercely. And I just put everything that I was passionate about in my life behind it. And at that point, she just looked at me kind of stunned and she walked away. And I was like, holy crap, that
Wow.
that worked.
Wow. 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 So this is fantastic because it's like one aspect in your life where you actually getting angry is a life saving. Right? Taking it's like, okay, get angry. It's like, "Wah." That is insane. Did you ever think like, oh my God, I look silly when I do this? Or you didn't even have time to do that?
You don't even think like I mean when you are afraid you're going to die in the woods and you're literally thinking, gosh, I hope that if I die it's quick. The only thing you're thinking about is survival and it's that fight or flight and our bodies are experts at this. And so nothing like that flashed through my mind. But at the same time, upon reflecting now that it's in the past, I'm sure that if people were further away, they probably would have been like, oh, there's two bears fighting in the woods, like,
That is super cool. So this is like such a serendipity, right? Because you're like, I'm not gonna meet anything, and then you meet these people who actually show you what's gonna happen. Did they not tell you like where the bear is gonna go and like, hey, don't go in that direction because you might meet a bear?
well, they weren't sure. What's also interesting is I checked in with the park ranger before my hike. And I made sure I wanted to make sure there weren't any weird abnormalities with animals. And they were like, oh, it's fine. Turns out when I finished, they actually did have problems around that lake that they just weren't reporting to backpackers, which is really disappointing. But I had the contact information for one of the guys from the trip, and he was the former mayor of Citrus Heights in Sacramento. And so he gave me his pin that I had on my hat. And I told him, like, if you run for reelection, I have the best story for you because you saved my life. If you guys hadn't taught me this, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, wow. That's totally about like, random goodness in people, right? And like, hey, there's a little girl going out there. She's clueless. Let's help her.
Well, what's ironic is I really wasn't clueless. I had been on several backpacking trips. I had trained people on backpacking, and really the reality is running into a bear like that is very uncommon. But I do say now I travel with bear spray for a couple of reasons. If you're a female backpacking alone, the bear spray canister is pretty large, and if you have that on your front belt, men are not going to mess with you. So
Ah.
it's kind of a deterrence twofold. It's for an animal protection, particularly bears, as well as men.
And you know what? This is actually kind of like a little bit of bummer that we actually need to protect ourselves, from men traveling alone. That's, yeah. So you were saying that this happened after your divorce and after your health crisis. So let's talk about that a little bit. What did you do before you started your business and before this whole journey unfolded for you? Unfolded for you.
Yeah, so I had a really interesting, windy, curving path of a career. I started in nonprofit after getting my master's degree in public administration. So I was working in a policy think tank in North Carolina. And then my husband at the time, we got transferred to California. And even though he had a decent salary with his company, I needed to double my salary overnight in order for us to make ends meet.
Wow.
So I had to get a job in university. So I joined University of California Office of the President, and the CIO there just saw something in me. So I went from a research assistant to a director in IT in a day, and joined his team, and he invested and mentored me in that. And then essentially, I kind of kept switching jobs. I worked in public sector for a while, then I worked in private sector at Visa, all across technology, primarily doing program management, communications, and strategy, and really becoming an expert or a guru in relationship management in business.
Hmm.
And then I just kept getting laid off. And eventually, between that and the divorce, and kind of having all these really weird health diagnoses that nobody could figure out, I got fed up and I wanted more control. And I decided to start my own business because it was this continued pattern. I would get laid off and I'd have a new health problem that was really
Wow.
requiring massive lifestyle changes.
So this is very interesting because a lot of people, you know, what you're telling me is a very strong mindset. I would assume that a lot of people like, okay, you get laid off, you try again, you get laid off, you try again, you're going like, I suck, can't even hold a job, and most people are not going to make that mental switch to be like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to start my own business. So what was that like? You know, especially like if you're getting a job, getting laid off, getting a job, getting laid off, marriage doesn't work, everything around you tells you like, give up, right? So why didn't you not give up? How did you build that mental connection, right, to move on to something of your own?
Yeah, it's interesting. I never considered any of my layoffs as a failure. It
There
just
you go.
never
Yeah.
occurred to me. It was more like I knew I was a really invaluable employee, and it was just frustrating to me that loyalty culturally in corporations was dying. My parents' generation, they could stay with companies for 20, 30 years.
Right.
And I was that kind of loyal,
Yeah.
hardworking employee, and that was vanishing from the system.
Mm.
And so basically, my generation and people that are in the younger generations, it's more of a contract to contract, job to job. There's no real loyalty. And so for me, it was just, I got exhausted with investing so much of myself into these companies and being so expendable. And
Yeah.
then the fact that they put so much stress and pressure and politics on me, and then I would get these health challenges. I felt like I wasn't empowered for my personal life and I wasn't achieving everything I wanted to achieve. And so for me, after this happened 4 times in a row, and I was an amazing employee, I was getting bonuses, I was, indispensable, and yet I was somehow dispensable when they came around for layoffs. And so at this point, I was like, well, I want to help other people that have this problem. I want to help people start businesses. I want to have more control. And I really want to feel passionate about my work, which will help my health.
It's very interesting. I often think that people who are self starters, are loyal, can get shit done, right? They're actually making the worst employees um, because they have so many ideas and they really want to move it forward and they take ownership. And I found exactly the same thing like you, where you come in, you're like, look, we should do this, we should do that, after that, and your boss only wants you to do what they think, their vision, execute on that, and now you're becoming too much, right? Like too much of a thinker, too much of a doer, too much of like, no, this is the path we're going, but you're like, hey, there's another one. No, this is the path. So it's very very interesting to see um, how difficult it can be, right, for someone who's a self-starter, who really wants to be part of something, who puts all their attention and information, everything that they have into a company that is not their own. How frustrating that can be, where you're like, you know, I'm not getting anywhere because I'm always having to negotiate and prove and talk about like why we're doing it this way. So, and I found that like for me, right, I've worked with like different companies before, and same exact same exact thing, right? Like you're like, oh my god, this is, we're gonna grow this together, and the boss goes like, no, 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 this is the direction. I found after years of doing that that like, why would I beat someone else's business? If I have my passion and I'm gonna put all these hours, let me build my own, the way I want it, right, and the way I'm gonna do it. So how did you figure out like what was your own? Like how did you figure out like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go and this is the type of business that I'm gonna create. I'm not gonna bake cupcakes, right? I'm actually gonna do this type of marketing. What was the direction that you
Yeah,
took?
yeah, well, a couple things. First of all, I agree. Like, I was very fortunate. All of the mentors and bosses that I had really got behind my vision. I very rarely was told no. The only thing I heard was slow down. Like I was too fast, and I had to learn how to bring people along with me because for me, it was like it made sense. And for them, it's like they're all the way back here, and I'm like 20 steps ahead. And so it wasn't that they weren't behind my vision. I was very fortunate. I had amazing bosses and mentors. And that made it more difficult for me to make the transition at first because I was so fortunate, especially in technology as a woman. However, eventually, my biggest layoff that was most disappointing was from Visa. I was with them for 4.5 years, started as a contractor, became an employee, started their tech center for supporting staff. And that was like one of their biggest inventions that they spread globally for their employees, 80,000 across the globe. And then when I lost that job, it was really not one that I was prepared for. Most layoffs I can kind of sense, and this one I was like, whoa, it just really threw me for a loop.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, I wanted to support other people that could be in corporate America that are intrapreneurs, meaning they're entrepreneurs, but they're misplaced in a corporate environment, or people that were business owners but didn't have the business sense, how they could develop that, how they could have the right mindset to scale it to the next level. And so I really decided to focus on public relations, marketing, and technology because those are my areas of expertise to help people primarily in the service industry create businesses that thrive because it had a more significant ripple effect in a way that I was more passionate about than in corporate America.
So the first thing that pops to my mind is now, during this crisis, a lot of people are laid off. There's a lot of emotional mindset conversations that are happening, a lot of worry about what's going to happen next. So do you have an advice for someone in that position right now? Like, okay, here's how you're going to approach what's happening right now and how you can build a bridge into something else.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, the first thing is if you sit there and feel like a failure, that's completely a waste of your time and you're not a failure. A lot of layoffs have nothing to do with your worth as an employee. It simply is a numbers game, and eventually they have to cut percentages. And typically, the highest performing employees have larger salary and larger bonus structures, so that you're going to be cut first if there's substantial layoffs. So don't take it personally. And I know that's really difficult, but it's really a waste of time to feel like a failure and you go on the pity party for too long. Like, yes, process that. It's a really big blow when you're laid off, especially after a long career, but move past that as fast as you can. From there, it's really important to reanalyze your life priorities before you look for your next job or if you're going to create your own business. The mistake people make is they go through this traumatic layoff or this big transformation in life and they don't stop and reflect on that point in life and what their priorities are. And so that means that when they get a job offer, they're just going to take it because they're so desperate and they're thinking that I have to take this for survival. And yes, sometimes that is the case, but you want to start your career search or your company from a stance of knowing what your priorities are. And even if you have to take a stepping stone position to financially survive, great. And so I think it's all about baby steps. Define your life priorities, start applying for those jobs, and use your network. Most 90% of jobs out there are attained through people you know. So reach out to your network and let them know you're looking for a job and what that looks like based on that reflection time and the priorities in your life and where you really shine.
I love that. A lot of people really forget that, your network is your net worth. right? And like, ooh, I don't want to tell my friends, and I don't want to ask them, and I don't want to bug them. But that's like the only people that will actually know what you're worth and can refer you and can support you and can help you out. So there are three things that you're talking about when you're talking about business. There's health, there's business, and there is clarity. And you just kind of like touched on clarity a little bit, knowing what you want. So if someone is, they got laid off, they always wanted to start a business. They're going like, you know what? Now it's the time. What's the first thing that they should look at before, as they take that step, the transitioning?
Yeah, well, the reason that I have them in order of health, clarity, business is because when you go through a layoff, if you're thinking from the mindset of failure, a lot of people can spiral into depression. They can have their anxiety spike and they could have some health stuff that comes up. So I really do think that making sure your health is right is important, especially today with COVID-19. You really need to make sure your health is okay. And if you've been working for years and this is your first layoff, take, 2 to 4 weeks to recalibrate and just ground and check in with your body to make sure you're okay. We live in such a culture where our cortisol and stress levels are elevated constantly.
Right.
And if you don't have your health, if you're going to start launching a career search or start a business, it's pointless. It's like so depleting and de-energizing. It takes so much energy to go on that career search and build that company. So take the time for that. And then from there, like I said before, be really clear. I have something called a business and life compass. And this is one of the tools that I use with all my clients and in all the workshops and talks that I do because people really get lost in just finding that security in their career or their business and they forget what they're building. So, in that business compass and life compass, you define your top 5 life priorities. You're very specific on that. So, is spending time with your children is a priority. Write out what that means. Is that 10 hours a week? Is that going on every field trip that they have? What does that mean to you? And be really clear. And then for the business side of the compass, what are your top 3 business goals, very tangibly outlined on the right hand side? And then across the top, you have your big motivating factor. So this is your stretch goal for 1 to 5 years from now. What is that so that you can tap into that every day and stay on track and motivated? And then from here, how you use that is if there's something that's not on your compass and you're asked to do it, gracefully say no. Because if you're not saying no to that, eventually you're going to be forced to say no to something that is on there that's going to get you 1% closer to that 5 year goal. So using that compass and being really clear as you start your career search or your business to keep things balanced is really essential. Otherwise, you'll get lost.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, 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 this is great. And I want to show you everybody, like you can just hop in to thatgeek.com right here while you're watching us. You can click here and join the conversation. And right here, you can click and grab a free copy of your compass. Just put your name and email. And I love that you're using Active Campaign, by the way. So
I
grab
love
it.
Active Campaign.
I'm like such a geek about Active Campaign. It's like my favorite thing. And I'm like, I want the entire world to use it. So, but having a compass and actually knowing where you're going and keeping your eye on the compass, right? Because it's very, very difficult, especially when you're doing it on your own. A lot of people find like, entrepreneurship can be very lonely and it's just you and it's just your business and nobody else is doing what you're doing. And should I talk to them? Are they going to steal my idea? So when people come to you and they work with you, how do you hear that a lot? People are like, it's kind of like a lonely path and I'm not really sure what to do. And if they do, what's your solution?
I don't know that I hear that it's too lonely. The primary concern that I hear is they have so many ideas because entrepreneurs are typically serial entrepreneurs, and as entrepreneurs we're really creative. So we constantly have these continued ideas. And so it's like, okay, well, what one thing do I focus on this week when I have 20 ideas? So it's more
Mm-hmm.
about keeping them focused and on track and not boiling the sea, because if you try to do everything, you're going to fail because you can't sustain doing 20 things well. It's really about choosing a strategy and a roadmap and sticking to that one thing until you optimize it and become known for that. And then you can expand the menu of services and products. So a lot of it's that. Secondarily, yes, I mean, I hear that it's difficult as an entrepreneur because, especially a solo entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, which is typically probably 50% of my client base. And for them, it's more they need a sounding board. They typically have a pretty good network in terms of people that they're doing affiliate marketing with, or they have referral partners, and it's a community, especially in the service industry, because there's aspects that you are not the expert in, and so you want to be able to share, referral from your network. But for them, I remind them it's really important to build your business community and have that and a trusted mastermind or a coach or a mentor or a combination of these things. Otherwise, it does feel very lonely and unfocused. And so for myself, because I believe that you shouldn't hire a coach that doesn't walk that talk. I have a
Yes.
business coach,
Yeah.
I have a life coach, and I have a mentor. And that might seem like a lot. I meet with my business coach the most frequently, my life coach every 4 to 6 weeks. And believe it or not, like it's very helpful. We tend to go deep on something that's a little more broader or softer. And it helps me have breakthroughs in the business. And then my mentor, he's more, Holly, what are your goals for the next 4 to 6 months? And he's holding me more accountable and then giving me a second perspective on the business angle.
I love that. I really do. So, a lot of people who don't know the difference between a mentor, a business coach, a life coach, like what they're doing, and they don't know how to choose the right one. One of the things that, can help with this is asking the right questions, right? And knowing that they walk the walk. So, can you tell a little bit like people who don't know where to start, how to choose a mentor, how to choose a business coach, how to go about doing that?
Yeah, well, also to go back and answer the difference between health, life coach, business coach. So, health coach is going to focus on your health needs, and that is a very broad spectrum. So, if you're looking for deep nutrition, make sure you hire a health coach that goes deep there. So, it depends on your health goals. A life coach is somebody who's going to help you work on your mindset and lifestyle things and habits, etc. And they really partner quite well with the business coach. A business coach is somebody who's specifically working on, your strategy, your marketing, your messaging, and each business coach has their area of specialty. And so wherever your weakest area is, that's where you want to interview for that coach. And then a mentor is somebody who you're typically not paying for them. And by the way, you can have unpaid business coaches through organizations like SCORE, they're a nonprofit. That's score.org, and
Right.
mentors
Yeah.
to them as well. But a mentor is just somebody who you look up to. They have a career or a business that you really admire, and they're there to build you up, but also have those tough love conversations. So they're very similar to a business coach, but it's typically a slightly different relationship, less formal than having a business coach. In terms of asking the right questions, it's really about that compass. So, what are your 3 goals in your business? What are the 5 life priorities? Where are you having the weakest links? Is it related to your life? Is it related to the business? And then seeking out a coach in those specific areas related to life or business that's a good fit. And then asking that coach, well, who is your coach? Who are you working with? How are you growing as a human?
I like that. Do you ever feel like, coaches don't like to share that information because then they'll be like, well, if you're coaching with him, why would I not coach with him? Do you ever find that like
I
no?
never thought of it that way. Like, my coach is amazing. So I just want people to find the right coach for them. That's the best fit. So if I'm the right coach, great. I don't really look at it from a stance of competition because it's really hard as a coach to have a client that's not 110% in terms of like the chemistry working together, where you're going together, because it's a partnership. And
Yeah.
so if I said, my coach is Hope Savara, which is true, her name is Hope Savara, she's phenomenal. If she's a better fit for you, great. If I'm a better fit for you, awesome. It's really just about finding that coach. I really just want to help more people be successful in the areas that they're passionate so that they can have that ripple effect and help other people.
Totally. And so when was looking for coaches and consultants, at the beginning it was the reviews, right? Like how many, like the testimonials and stuff like that. And I found that even though some of them might have fantastic testimonials, um, a lot of them did not stand up to what they promised. And my last coach was someone that I actually saw in action. I'm like, ooh, that's a person of integrity. That's a person who delivers results. They get it. And I signed up with them. Yeah, and it's so important. Like, you don't know what you don't know. And you really want to talk to someone who has been there, has done that, and really importantly, can teach you how to do it. So, and it's not a one time success, right? Like, a lot of people will be like, this one time, I made $1 million with this one, little trick. Now pay me $10,000 and you do the trick too, and you can also make $1 million, right? You know that ad in the paper, that joke about someone putting an ad in the paper saying, "Pay me $5 and I'll tell you how to make $1 million with ads in the paper." You know that one?
Yeah.
And then you pay the $5, right? And you get it back, and it says, put an ad in the paper that says, pay me $5 and I'll show you how to do this. So that's the one thing that you really need to watch for. And talk to people, right? Like, talk to people of who they had success with, what do they recommend, why. And just know, like, this is another thing that I'm kind of like very icky on. Everybody has their own experience with someone, right? So if someone didn't have a good experience, or if someone had a great experience, it's not necessarily mean that you're going to have that same experience, good or bad. And so sometimes trying for yourself and kind of like getting a gut feeling, I'm starting to trust my gut more. Do you have the same thing, like after years in business?
Yes, it is so important to listen to your gut
Right.
intuition, whatever you want to call it. When I when I first started, I wasn't like from a desperation standpoint, but I took on maybe one or two clients that my gut was like, this is not a good fit.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, those are the most painful clients because this is not a good fit. There's probably somebody out there that's a better fit for them as a coach. But also to your other point of you don't know, a lot of coaches out there might have a certification. Most of these certifications take 3 to 6 months, maybe a year at the most. And so that to me doesn't matter nearly as much as their track record.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've 13 years of executive level roles at companies with nothing but amazing testimonials and references. And then in terms of building a business, I have tons of people that refer me business, including my local chamber of commerce that I partner with. That to me speaks way more in terms of volume than just a certification. So be really careful on these coaching certifications and ask them what their background is.
Totally.
I would never hire a coach until I saw like their full resume.
That's true. So let's pivot a little bit and talk about tips and strategies that businesses can use right now to actually grow their business. And I don't know if scaling, is that something that you do or not really?
Yeah, I do
A little bit.
scaling as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
we can do just general as well.
yeah. So let's start with someone like, someone just starting out, and it's like, okay, I'm starting out, quit my job, got fired, right? I'm gonna make the pivot for a business of my own. What are the first three things that they need to have in order to, to get started in the right way?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing is to really reflect on what your biggest strengths are as a professional, because your ideas hopefully stem from those, areas where you're an expert. So, what are those? Are you really strong in communications? Are you really great at managing product lines? Are you good at managing a team? Are you a strong consultant? And so, look at the list of your strengths as a professional, and then have a list of your passions professionally, and then try to see where those cross over. And then from here, it's great to start an ideas list for how your company or your service would be unique. And then just make a really big list and don't judge it. Just write everything that comes to mind and then reflect on that for a few days to see which are the top two that really stick, that keep you up at night, where you're trying to solve it and create around it because you're that excited, because you have to find something that you're going to be deeply passionate about and it's going to motivate you for years, because business development does take time. And then from there, you're going to start doing some market research. And this is where people get overwhelmed. And so at
Yeah.
this point, if you have a good idea, that's a great time to start looking for a coach. If you're feeling really freaked out on the roadmap and the steps you need to take and staying focused and how to do that market research. But
Right.
those are the first few steps. You want to have an idea, know your strengths and your passions and where they overlap. And then that's where you want to start getting really focused and serious.
I love that. And I want to say thanks to Carinder, I believe. She says, "Hey, Holly," and she shared our interview. So if you're watching us right now and you love it and you want other people to benefit from the same thing, please share it. And if you want to be part of the conversation, hopping in here. I'm thatgeek.com/live. Hop in and say hi because we'd love to meet you. And we do have Stuart with us. So let's hop into Stuart and say hi, Stuart. And if you're watching
Hi,
us,
Stuart.
hop on in.
I'm
There we go.
working on it. There we are.
There we go.
Hi, how are you? Um,
Great.
when you mention working with the people that you already know, your circle of people, I automatically went to LinkedIn, and yes, I have a substantial number of people I can call on. But I wonder if that, even as an employee, excuse me, didn't mean that as a shot. As an executive level, seems to me that would be a place to make yourself known and then make those individual connections within LinkedIn. I'm not experienced at it. Um, I've been self-employed so long, I'm probably self-employed longer than your dad. Um, so I got no experience at working with corporations. I'm just bad at it. So would that be one way of a person who felt they didn't really have that big circle to jump into one?
Yeah, that's a good question, Stuart. So LinkedIn is really, really powerful, but it does tend to be, corporate or in the business arena. So I work with people that are also artists and they're not really into the LinkedIn world. And so depending on the person I'm working with, it could be getting them into a platform like LinkedIn. It could be getting them into a different platform online. But there's also really great local circles. So a lot of people that I work with that are solopreneurs, it's great for them to join a BNI, so Business Networking International. That helps them with building referrals, understanding how to do referral marketing so that you build that word of mouth business. And anything like that, it doesn't have to be BNI. There's all kinds of different organizations like this. Getting involved with your chamber of commerce is great, whether you're in a corporate company in a sales role, marketing role, or you're a business. It's really wonderful for expanding your network. So yes, it doesn't have to be online. It could be a physical network and circle of people. And then over time, as you build online and offline, you will kind of hone in on who your people are, meaning your core business people that you want to refer your clients to because you know, like, and trust them. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I mean, around where I live right now, there is a substantial artist community. They're a little invisible unless you're an artist, but they have a show once a year where you go from house to house to house to look at the artist's work. And it is, I'm sure, a great place for someone to make a connection.
Yes,
I'm the
absolutely.
absolute art. I'm the absolute opposite of an artist, so, but I really enjoy going and looking.
Yeah, no, I mean it's great. So it's really fun when I work with people that are artists or they're really creative, but they don't necessarily feel comfortable with networking or doing the business side. So it's kind of pushing people out of their comfort zone so that they can expand and get the word out there, share their message through art or their products or their business. So it's really working with each person to create that networking relationship management plan.
Yifat, do I have time for one small question?
Sure, go for it.
Um, I have a friend of mine who is a fantastic photographer. I mean, and he's got the perfect domain for the state of Arizona, AZ Artist. I mean, he could just sell stuff off that domain. But I can't seem to move him off the dime to start any effective marketing or going out, as you're saying, and gathering a group. Any ideas on how to take someone who comes to you or is referred to you and yet sits like a bump on a log?
Yeah, it's interesting you share this. Like one of the biggest challenges that I've had working with artists specifically or creative types in the business arena is they're very uncomfortable with marketing and sales. And so I like to help them. It's really a mindset thing. And so I like to remind them you can't blame the medium. So your message is through a specific medium. For artists, it's through their artwork. For people in technology, it's using the internet. And so you have to be comfortable getting your message out there. And the way I share this is, okay, let's say, Susie needs to see your art and it's going to transform her life. Who are you to get so hung up on your own stuff around sales and marketing and getting your message out there that you're not going to share so that Susie can have that transformation or that positive impact and share that light with the world? And so when you start sharing it from the perspective of when you're speaking and putting your message out there, whether it's marketing or you're on a stage or you're in a networking space and you're trying to push past your comfort zone, it's not about you as the business owner or the artist. It's about all the people that could be positively transformed or impacted by your art. So I would try to defer him and say, especially if you know him personally and you've talked to other customers that have had a positive impact, be like, share those stories. And by him not marketing or her not marketing, she's actually keeping people from having that positive transformation. And typically this helps them start shifting their perspective and getting more comfortable with that.
Thank you. That is absolutely useful because he really is good. And I just keep trying. I'm in Tucson, Arizona, and you may not be aware of it, but this is a heck of an artistic town. George O'Keeffe did a lot of her work here, etc. So I'm trying to push him into, come on. And what you just said is a line I never thought about. You're withholding your work from people that get some real value. And so
Yeah,
thank you very much. That was very helpful.
you're welcome. Yeah, I hope it helps.
Yeah,
Me
so
too.
one of the that was a great question, Stuart. Fantastic. There's a lot of people who struggle with sales and marketing. Um, Aside from the mental side of it, they also need to know specifically what to do, right? So after you got the compass and you figured out what your business is going to be like, are there any specific tools that you use? Like for example, Active Campaign, I love it, right? But are there any specific tools that you go like, hey, step one, look good on social media, right? Or have your presence online. Step two, step three, like what's that path like?
Well, step one is to build a niche. And this is the biggest hang up when you start with new solo entrepreneurs. They want to serve everyone,
Yeah.
right? They don't want to have a niche. And so it's really about getting very clear on the specific person you are serving, that avatar.
Right.
So an avatar is just creating a deep understanding of what that person that you're speaking to is. So you literally name them, you say their demographic, their biggest fears, the shows that they're watching. And every single time you write anything for marketing or you're on a stage or you're in a coffee chat, you're always speaking to that avatar. And it helps you get into the right mindset so that you're speaking to them versus yourself. The biggest problem I see with people who are doing marketing that are new to it is they're marketing from their mindset. And you are not your ideal client. Your ideal client is somebody who's 5 steps behind you or is not an expert in the area that they're hiring you in. So if you're marketing from your own mindset, you're going to fail because that's not your ideal client. So get really clear on your niche and your ideal client before you waste money and time doing any of it. From there, yes, it's really important to choose your social media accounts that you want to be active on. Now, depending on the demographic and your ideal client, that will impact which social media targets you're going to go for. If you're targeting moms and women, you're going to be on Facebook and you're going to be on Instagram. If you're targeting corporate America or B2B, it's going to be LinkedIn. If you're targeting men, it's going to be YouTube. So do that research and narrow where you want to be known in terms of the social media world. Some of the tools that I use in terms of technology, so we can geek out on that. I use Hootsuite for scheduling all of my social media, so I'm not multiply doing it, and I can respond in one platform and on my mobile device when I'm traveling. I use ActiveCampaign for my email marketing and some of my automation on my website so that I can personalize and target information to all the different segments within my ideal audience. And then I use Linktree on Instagram so that I have multiple offerings across all of the calls to action that I have, because within your marketing, you should always have a call to action, whether it's a free giveaway on your website, signing up for a free coaching call, buying something, or just taking action on something or commenting. It can be as simple as that. You want to build a conversation, not just selling when you're building these things. So those are some of the tools and some of the first steps for marketing and sales.
Amen to that, to building conversations, right? That's like the
Yes.
biggest thing. Yeah. So let's finish with your podcast. You just launched your new podcast live on screen. So let's talk a little bit about what goes in your podcast, where can people find it and listen to it, and really the inspiration behind the inspiration.
Yeah, so the idea for the podcast, I had a mentor mention recently. He's like, "You've said you wanted to write this book for such a long time. What's holding you back? It would be really great for your career." And I was like, "Oh, I'm not sure it's the right time." So I meditated, reflected on it. And one morning while I was meditating on it, I realized that every time I started writing the book, it was from this place of invisible pain, which is really negative and depleting. And I was like, well, no wonder I don't want to write this book. And I realized that the message I wanted to share was around inspiration and how our journey can be painful and difficult and scary and daunting, but it's possible to stay the course and to be inspirational and remain inspired. And so I decided that the way I wanted to remain accountable was through launching a podcast so that I could collect interviews and case studies and data to expand what I feel about transformational leadership and how it's really essential, and the areas we can be really strong as leaders and the areas where we're not as strong. And so I decided to launch a podcast called Inspiration Contagion. And it's really about spreading inspiration by interviewing one transformational leader at a time. And this could mean a health transformation, a life transformation, or a business transformation. And they share their stories along with actionable, tangible advice so that the audience can grow alongside with them and be inspired.
I love it. And where can they find it?
They can find it at inspirationcontagion.com or hollyjeanjackson.com under the inspiration link. And they can
Yeah.
also find it on any like Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, like all of the main providers.
So guys, go check it out. What was that? Interview 8? Interview 8?
Yeah, you were interview 8. You check out Yifat's interview. It was really, really good. And it's on
Interview
YouTube
8.
too.
Yeah, and leave comments and rank it and let us know how you like it, and how was that inspiring to you, not inspiring to you. So lastly, Holly, where can people find you aside of here, guys? If you just go to thatgeek.com/live, you're gonna get a few things. You're gonna get Holly's gift for you. Just download that. And also right here on the bottom, I believe you can follow Holly on all her social profiles, find her everywhere. Is there anything specific that you would like them to go and get?
Yeah, I mean, check out the compass. I really feel like if you just do one thing, which I'm all about when I coach people, one thing, because it's overwhelming otherwise, download the compass and take the time to fill it out. Put it on your desktop as a screensaver. Put it on your phone. Share it with your family. Share it with your employees. Share it with your staff. Share it with your friends so that when you say no, they understand why you're saying no. It's because you're really building this roadmap to be so successful about the areas you're most passionate about and keeping a balanced, thriving life. So make sure you download that. And then, follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Some really great videos on my YouTube account from the podcast, as well as my anxious list series that I had a little while ago. But it's really good, juicy tips if you have anxiety right now.
I love it. So thank you so much. I love everything that you're sharing, and oh my God, escaping a bear and not having to go through, an entire therapy session just to deal with that experience is fantastic. So thank you so much, guys. If you want to follow Holly, grab her magnet. Everything is right here on the site. We will see you in 2 weeks on That Geek. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Stuart.